rusty old Ford F-150 rumbled down a gravel road, kicking up clouds of dust. The cab was cramped and stuffy, but the three friends, Ethan, Josh, and Megan, were in high spirits. "Dude, turn the radio up. I love this song." Megan swayed in her seat, clutching a plastic cup of coffee. "The radio barely gets a signal out here in the mountains," Josh said, pushing a map closer to the dim light. "Are you sure we didn't take a wrong turn? The trail was supposed to be here." "Relax," Ethan said, carefully turning the wheel. "My grandpa used to take me down these roads. I know this place like the back of my hand." They were all in their 20s. They weren't afraid of anything. "By the way," Ethan said after a pause, "have you guys heard the legend of the Cattywampus?" "The what?" Megan giggled. "The Cattywampus. It's a local legend, a six-legged panther that lives in the Appalachians. They say if it spots you, everything depends on whether it likes you. If it does, it'll lead you out of the woods. If not..." "Then what?" Josh asked, feigning interest. "You'll be lost forever." A moment of silence fell over the cab. Megan let out a nervous laugh. "That's just some backwoods folktale, like Bigfoot or the Chupacabra." "Maybe," Ethan smiled, "and maybe not." The road narrowed. The trees closed in so tightly that sunlight fell only in narrow stripes. The atmosphere shifted imperceptibly. The laughter grew quieter, and a heavy, unexplainable feeling hung in the air. When they finally found a clearing by an old stream, the sun was already setting. The friends set up their tents and built a fire. The smoke rose, mixing with the scent of pine. "Ah, this is it," Megan said, holding her hands out to the warmth. "Finally, real camping. No phones, no people." "Just us in the forest," Josh confirmed, tossing a branch into the fire. When darkness fully settled, the area became unnervingly quiet. Usually at night you could hear crickets or frogs, but here there was nothing, just the crackling of the wood. "It's too quiet," Ethan mumbled. "It's like all living things have frozen." "You and your scary stories are getting to me," Megan said, throwing a handful of dry leaves at him. Josh, on the other hand, was excited. "Hey, let's tell some scary stories, like when we were kids. Who's first?" They laughed, interrupting each other, making up silly things. But the laughter died when a sound echoed from deep within the forest. At first, it was quiet, like an owl's hoot. But then the cry changed. It became long, drawn out, and eerie. It was both the howl of a beast and the groan of a person. Megan grabbed Ethan's arm. "What was that?" "Probably a coyote," Josh said uncertainly. But deep down, each of them knew it was something else. Megan woke up in the night. The fire was almost out, just glowing embers remaining. She got out of the tent to get some more wood. The forest was unnaturally dark, as if someone had wiped the stars from the sky. Megan bent down to pick up a dry branch and froze. Between the trees, eyes were glowing. High above the ground, yellow-green with narrow pupils. They were staring right at her. Her heart pounded so hard it felt like it would burst from her chest. She took a step back, then another, and suddenly, the eyes were gone, as if they had never existed. Megan scrambled back. When she burst into the tent, Ethan woke up. "What happened?" "Someone was out there, in the trees. I saw eyes." Josh laughed, but his voice was betraying him, trembling. "You're just imagining things. It was an owl. They glow like that in the moonlight." But there was no moon that night. The morning felt quiet and even sunny, but the atmosphere hadn't changed. Megan's hands were shaking as she tried to make coffee on the small camping stove. Ethan was silent, and Josh, as always, tried to crack jokes. "Okay, guys, we have three options. Either we go on to the river, we go back and admit that Megan just scared herself with a reflection in the branches, or we sit here and wait for a swarm of mosquitoes to eat me alive." "I saw the eyes," Megan said sharply. Her voice cracked. "It wasn't an owl. It stared right at me." Josh wanted to argue, but Ethan intervened. "Let's go to the river. There's more open space there. And, well, water always helps with navigation." They packed up and headed down the path, but the path seemed strange. Sometimes it split in two, sometimes it simply vanished under their feet. Ethan stubbornly walked forward, but the longer they went, the more the forest seemed to close in on them. The branches hung so low they had to crouch, and the silence was oppressive. And then they heard that cry again. This time it was closer. The sound tore through the silence as if someone was torturing a woman, and at the same time the roar of a predator could be heard within it. Megan covered her ears and started to cry. A shadow darted ahead, and all three of them stopped. "Did you see that?" Megan whispered. "Just a deer," Josh mumbled, but his voice was shaky. A figure emerged onto the path. It was a cat, but bigger than any mountain lion Ethan had seen in books. Its body was muscular, dark, like a fusion of shadow and fur, and 6 legs, moving relentlessly like a machine. Its eyes glowed a toxic yellow. It stood there, looking straight at them. Ethan knew the legend. He knew not to look it in the eyes, but Megan couldn't look away. "Megan, no!" he yelled, grabbing her shoulder. But it was too late. Her body trembled, her eyes widened. She took a step forward, then another, as if something large and dark was pulling her. Josh lunged after her, but the Cattywampus let out a cry so loud that the ground beneath them shook. Josh fell to his knees, covering his head with his hands. Megan reached out her hand, and then she was gone, as if she had dissolved into the air. Only her scream remained, getting lost in the depths of the trees. Ethan and Josh were left alone. "What was that? Where is she?" Josh shook Ethan's shoulders. "I don't know!" They ran in a panic, trying to find tracks, but every path led to nowhere. The trees all looked the same, as if the forest was changing right before their eyes. Josh suddenly stopped, looking ahead with terror. "Do you see it?" Ahead, between the trees, were the eyes again, this time closer. They glowed in the darkness, and an unnatural silence surrounded them. Josh couldn't take it. He screamed and ran. Ethan ran after him, but a few seconds later, he only heard Josh's desperate cry that ended so abruptly as if someone had clasped their hand over his throat. Silence returned to the forest. Ethan was left alone. Only the sound of his own breathing broke the stillness. The forest seemed alien, hostile, and every shadow held a threat. He walked forward, trying to keep his bearings, but the trees repeated themselves like in a nightmare. Here was a fallen oak, there was moss on a stone, and a few minutes later he saw them again. Hours stretched into what felt like days. The sun should have been higher by now, but the light remained dim, as if filtered through fog. Ethan started talking to himself to stay sane. "Okay, just keep going straight. Find the stream. Find the water." But the stream was leading him in circles. He would drink the cold water, and then he would see the same stones, the same branches. The forest was playing with him. and every time he stopped, that same sound would echo in the silence, the rustle of paws in dry leaves. In the evening, he came to a small clearing. In the center stood the Cattywampus. It was waiting. Its 6 legs shifted slowly, almost silently. Its eyes burned like 2 torches. Ethan felt his knees tremble, but he didn't look away. The beast took a step to the side, and a path opened between the trees that hadn't been there before, narrow but clear. Another path appeared to the left. It led into the darkness, into a thicket where not a single ray of light was visible. Ethan understood. This was it, the choice. He remembered the words of the legend. If it decides you are worthy, it will show you the way. If not, it will lead you into the depths from which there is no return. Please, he whispered, though he knew the beast wouldn't answer. The Cattywampus froze. Its head slowly tilted to the side, as if it were evaluating his soul. Then a quiet, eerie sound came forth, like a laugh and a hiss at the same time, and the path to the right began to glow with a faint light. Ethan moved without thinking. He walked quickly, afraid to stop, afraid the path would vanish. The forest receded, the trees thinned out. He heard paws behind him. The Cattywampus was following him, but didn't attack. When he reached the edge of the forest, the sun hit him full in the face. He couldn't believe he was seeing light again. Turning around, he saw only the darkness of the forest. The Cattywampus hadn't come out, but its eyes still shone in the shadows, and a voice whispered right in his head, "I am leaving you, not the others." He was found the next morning by park rangers. Ethan was walking along the road, barefoot, pale, with an empty gaze. His hair had turned silver, as if he were 70, not 20. "Son, what happened?" they asked. And he just looked at them and quietly repeated, "She chose me. She showed me the way." When people in town started asking where Megan and Josh were, Ethan was silent. Sometimes he would wake up in the middle of the night and scream so loudly that neighbors called the police. Sometimes he would be found sitting on his porch, staring into the dark trees as if waiting for someone. Because he knew the Cattywampus doesn't let go forever. It gave him a way back, but sooner or later, it will call to him again. They say if you get lost in the Appalachian Mountains and hear a strange cry, half human, half beast, don't turn around. Don't look into its eyes, because if the Cattywampus looks at you, your fate is already sealed.